So this guy was asking who I met when I was speaking to Mr. Brown, who I was referring to as they, and I was referring to the LGBTQP3/2 paragraph C community. But I was just observing to the guy that he and I don't know, we're not the same age, but similar generation. We've been brought up to think that othering people is disrespectful, like it's discernment, really. The Bible says you must have discernment. You shouldn't judge, but you can judge. Oh, that's a man. Oh, that's a lady.
But I just needed that for clarification.
Yes, for sure.
I didn't have any false assumption about exactly what it is, or I didn't have any sensitivity. And that's because I was not part of the conversation from the inception. That's the reason.
That's who we were referring to as the them.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's one of their pronouns, maybe some of them.
It's one of them
they,
in a wider context.
The wider context is lunacy.
Yeah.
That's the wider context. Not reality is the wider.
But what I was thinking, I mean, you raised some very interesting points, but I think there was a missing link to your analysis.
Which one?
The missing link is that there's a global agenda.
For sure. We covered that briefly.
The global agenda stems from the powers, the global powers. And this global agenda seeks to destroy the traditional
values,
religious, historical, Abrahamic structure of family life. And one of the methods they're doing that is through education, economics, as well as sexualization. Now, the entertainment industry.
Oh, we didn't even get to that. That's a week-long video.
A huge impact in sending subliminal messages
and overt messages of 11-year-olds
reprogramming the younger generation and people towards this agenda. Now, this agenda is hugely paganistic. It's a paganistic. There's evidence for it. But what I was thinking when you were talking was quite interesting is that you were mentioning a very interesting element of a larger agenda to destroy, reconstruct the historical, traditional, religious family structure. And the way they do that is, number one, is the gender equality, the gender
prior to that,
superiority.
just denigration.
The other means of doing that is through the re-education of children around the sexuality.
Compulsory.
The entertainment industry has a contribution to it, but this hugely, in a global sense, is the global powers that be.
Now they're more overt than previously. Now they stand on it. They don't even mind people knowing that is their agenda. You know?
But I think if people choose not to listen to yourselves and other clear signals and very explicit messages and reprogramming, what they will experience is a complete destruction of the nuclear family, the traditional family, the religious family. And when the family is destroyed, they will want to know how we end up here. And that is because they probably ignore voices like your voices. But I think what your contribution is an element towards a puzzle that the bigger picture, there is a constructed political, economical, global agenda to destroy the religious, traditional,
it's basically, if you think
life.
of it this way, in terms of Christianity or Judaism or the Bible, let's say, one of the first things that God says within, I think, Genesis 1 or 2, let us make man in our image, and God made man, male and female, he created them. And literally, they're starting at the beginning, working their way through it, so they're attacking the idea that there is such a thing as a man, or there is such a thing as a woman. And what I find so often is that when I see interviews or YouTube clips of people just refusing to answer, they say, oh, it's anyone who thinks they're a woman, anyone who believes that, anyone who feels like a woman. But no one ever pushes them to say, well, okay, this former man feels like a woman. What does that feel like? How does he know what a woman is to feel like a woman if no one can say what is a woman? It's so easy. It's an adult human female. That's it. It's no rocket science involved. It's like a former little girl who's had a lot of time to get bigger. That's a woman. That's it. There is no just tuck your genitals. It's just not. You might, actually, gender, you could identify as a different gender, but like your sex, like hormonally, you will always be what you were above, and you weren't assigned it above. I've heard medical professionals or psychological professionals saying that sex or gender, is assigned at birth. I.e., like you have a look and you go, oh, that's why we're saying it's not the it's just, it can't be assigned. It's a fact of science. So, on the one hand, science is God when it comes to climate change and when it comes to any other nonsense you want to pull out of your hat. But all of a sudden, special place is given to gender theory and queer studies and all of that, whereby now science is irrelevant. It's all about how you feel. And
it depends on what type of science, because the faith communities do acknowledge science as defined as the observation of natural law.
But science has to be replicable and observable. Has to be replicated.
Now, the other side of science is a whole bunch of belief system and assumptions that is designed and strategically used to undermine and alter nature.
So that the tobacco industry, the oil industry, they're like.
So I think so. Even though people may say science, at some point in time,
what
science
is science?
has
Oh no, we haven't even answered.
Claims,
but we haven't even answered what is a woman.
And other sides of sciences has some very culpable and very much responsible for changing and trying to alter nature. Now, if you try to alter nature as it is, there are consequences
for sure.
Right. Now, when the consequences hit home, as opposed to world order. When you violate the natural order, nature, and the laws of nature, you might succeed, and you're going to beat your chest. Way power to science. But
not made it hurts if you're a lady.
The question is, there are consequences coming. So what is changing your body? Changing your sex, changing nature.
Massive increases in cancer and
so beat your chest now if you wish to.
Cut down.
Beat your chest now if you wish to in the name of science. But when the consequences reach your doorstep,
you'll have to beat your head in the name of God.
Right. Now a lot of people, quite a lot of people go through a transition where they adopt these ideas of legitimizing, changing nature. They want to change nature. And when they do it, they may feel good for a short while. But when
because then they're part of the solution and not part of the problem.
But when these consequences come, the reverse consequences come. You see, quite of them are suicidal.
That's what they're like. How did it happen?
They become suicidal.
They're already suicidal if you're talking about
unprecedented health complications come.
Mental health
goes down the drain.
Sure.
And the question about it is the insincerity about it.
It's a cult.
Nobody speaks about the consequences of people who go through this transition. What they do, they only capture the hype in the middle of it.
But the same as in any sales technique, you're never going to talk about
like
it.
Sin. They say sin is a short-term pleasure with long-term consequences. So the question is, when you're in your short-term hype and pleasure, that's what people capture.
I got time to listen to no one preaching.
But when the consequences hit home, nobody narrates that. Because the consequences is what will help you to think balancedly. But I don't want to talk too much, but I just wanted to say that your voices you're raising is very important. It's a great element, but the ultimate goal of this agenda, this global agenda, is to destroy traditions, valuable traditions, religion.
Anything that's true is to truth.
Nature
is under attack.
And the question is, maybe conversation for another time. This is the rebuilding of Babylon, the recreation of Pharaoh, the rebuilding of Babylon. And that's what I was thinking when you were giving your present. So thanks a lot for allowing me to make that point.
Thank you very much. I'll offer you an elbow. Cheers. I'm going to do a wrap up for this.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Well, didn't realise I was going to get a rebuilding in Babylon when I left my house this morning. But why not? It does make sense, actually. But more so, it's an attack on the truth, this pollen. Because Jesus is the truth. And he's already foretold all of this. We'll be hated because It's really inconvenient when everyone's asleep in a lie for you to just be bunnying on about the truth. It really does tick people off ever so much, as you'll find out if you ever, stand up at a meeting of like a bubble of people who all believe the same thing. If it's not true and say the truth, they just don't like it. You can't make friends like that, strangely. So hold on to the friends you do have. That's important, because love, I'm wrapping it up. Love is the answer. Not to every question, because some questions are, what's hate? So that's not the answer to that. But Jesus felt it important enough to give the two greatest commandments is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. And by doing so, you not only cover a multitude of sins, which is, whew, thank goodness, and God, who is goodness, but you also encompass all the entirety. You encompass the entirety of the law. Not that we need to, because it's Jesus who sanctifies us, but I guess it's a comfort to know that you're not transgressing. And really, after Jesus gave those two commands, the only sin is not to love. And obviously that all other sins stem from that lack. Because as the Bible says, without love we are nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. It doesn't say that, it just says nothing. I'm going to wrap it up because it's all getting a bit leery over there. And I love you people. Love you people as well. A little bit more, to be honest, but I love you as well. And subscribe to Soko and me, and share and like and click. And like I say, choose love, choose Jesus, and have a little look around your schools. What's that mean? All right. Ciao, ciao. Bye.